this video, we're going to discuss how to fill the nitrogen dewar for the cold probe, as well as the magnet with liquid nitrogen. First, we're going to want to make sure our nitrogen dispenser is properly connected. So you can use the non-magnetic wrench just to check that this bolt is tight. The bolt that connects the tubing to the nitrogen dispenser. The next thing that we want to do before we hook up the tubing to the nitrogen dewar is to open the outlet valve first. So the outlet valve is going to be the valve closest to the wall. Then we can open the inlet valve second. Once both valves are open, we can attach the tubing to the inlet valve. The tubing should be positioned so that it's at least a centimeter onto the valve. When we begin to dispense the liquid nitrogen, we want to start with a very slow flow, which will be just enough to freeze the lines. When the slow flow begins, we want to make sure that both the entrance and the exit to the tubing are straight out and that there are no kinks in the tubing. After a few seconds, you should be able to release the tubing because the freezing process will begin. At this point, you should let the nitrogen flow through the tubing for 1 to 2 minutes to make sure that the entire tubing is equilibrated. Once the line has fully frozen over, we can increase the flow rate. It's important not to touch the line while the nitrogen is flowing through it, because you don't want to accidentally shock the line, which could cause it to crack due to the thermal shock. The best way to gauge your flow rate is to look at the change of the kilograms on the scale. As you increase the flow rate, you can count the second intervals between the single decimal digit going up. About 2 to 4 seconds intervals is a good rate to fill the instrument. Once the dewar is filled, we can go ahead and turn off the flow of liquid nitrogen. At this point, I generally let it settle for 1 to 2 minutes before defrosting the line and the metal parts of the apparatus. So first we're going to defrost the lines. We want to hit the outlet valves as well as the two parts where the handles are, defrost both of these, and then also defrost the entire line. I generally wait to defrost the line until it is settled for a minute or two to avoid the potential cracking of the line. Once all of the metal parts of the apparatus have been defrosted, the tubing can be removed. Then the inlet valve is closed, and then the outlet valve is closed. At this point, paper towels should be used to remove any condensation from the metal parts so that they do not rust. After we've filled the cold probe dewar, we can move on to filling the magnet.
Before we can fill the magnet with liquid nitrogen, first we must open the console and put the magnet into maintenance mode. Connect to the magnet and log in as console. Select maintenance mode instead of connect. At this point, we'll have 5 potential windows to pick from here. Click on the status window. This displays the current levels of helium and nitrogen in the instrument. Since we will be filling nitrogen, we'll start by clicking Fill on the nitrogen tab. At this point, we can begin to fill the instrument with nitrogen.
Once you have prepared delta to read the nitrogen levels, we can fill the magnet with nitrogen. We'll start by removing the cap and placing the tubing on top of the entrance inlet. When placing the tubing, we also want to aim to have at least 1 centimeter of overlap. Then we can begin to fill the nitrogen in a similar fashion to filling the cold probe tank. We want to begin with a slow stream of nitrogen, just enough to freeze the line. Once we get that slow stream of nitrogen, we want to hold the line so that the inlet and outlet of the line are straight to reduce the chance of cracking the tubing. Once the line freezes, we can increase the flow rate to our desired flow rate. Ready?
Action.
Once the magnet is filled with liquid nitrogen, we can shut off the blue intake valve and allow the line to defrost for 1 to 2 minutes. Once the line has equilibrated for 1 to 2 minutes, we can begin to defrost it using the heat gun. We want to defrost both the line and the metal right below the line. Once the metal is fully defrosted, we can remove the tubing. When we remove the tubing, we want to quickly wipe any water that's left on the metal away before replacing the cap. And generally, you want to replace the cap as quickly as possible to prevent any humidity from entering the system.
Once the nitrogen level is above 95%, we can close out of the window. At this point, we need to turn the instrument off of maintenance mode by going to the Configure menu and clicking Turn Maintenance Mode Off. Now we can disconnect from the console user on the magnet. Click the Disconnect from Spectrometer button. We are now disconnected and can close the software.
This has been a short tutorial on how to fill the cold probe door and the NMR with liquid nitrogen.